But now we, of course, know Richard Hammond from Grand Tour with Jeremy Clarkson and James May, but he's now got a new sidekick for a new podcast. It's his daughter, Izzy.
Are there lots of middle-aged men now with hair looking at pictures of a beautiful Greg Wallace thinking, I need to shave my head?
I was
Maybe you're a
coming under. I was
trendsetter.
thinking I'm going to have to shave this off.
You're too hairy, Richard.
This is also a bloke talking to a bloke. He's brought it to you in a blokey fashion. Yeah. You're then being male-focused because you're trying to solve it.
Yeah.
You're not trying to just be there to say, oh, mate, I'm thinking about you. You threw the radio out the boat.
Yes.
Yeah,
You child.
We were filming on boats. It was horrible.
And rather than just turn it off, which is what a reasonable person would do, I just picked it up and threw it over the side.
And Richard and Izzy join us now. It's so good to see you both.
Nice to be here.
And I've been lilistening to you. Now I've got you here. It's
Yes.
lovely, lovely.
Live in person.
Yes, real people. It's such an important podcast for both of you,
Yeah.
actually. And it's a lot of it certainly was inspired by what we all kind of, it was just one of the most awful times for your family, this devastating car crash that we all were reading about at home, Richard. No one knew what was happening at the time. It affected all of you. But you changed as a person. The family almost changed. And a lot of the podcast has been born out of that.
Yeah, I suppose it has much as anything else, though, born out of being a middle-aged bloke. Mm-hmm. And as middle-aged men, we're not very good at talking about stuff.
Yeah.
No, they're not.
No.
They're really not.
We're really not. But because I was so publicly brain injured, and there's no shame or stigma for me in talking about my emotional state, mental health state, because I've had to deal with mending all of that, and so the guys around me. And so I think I wanted to do a podcast in that space about that, addressing it. Because I've kind of got permission to do it, and I think blokes can hear me talking about it, and it doesn't feel embarrassing.
It's not that awkward. Oh, why is he talking about
Exactly.
it? You've kind of got the permission to, because...
That's the word.
I mean, us as a family as well, we've spent a long time talking about his brain, because we had to.
What better subject could there be?
I know,
So it's the best thing to talk about.
but it's been sort of keeping an eye on it, his behaviour, how he's thinking, how he's acting, how he's feeling, because obviously he recovered in hospital, but when he was back home, that was very much, I mean, mainly my mum, just keeping an eye on him and making sure he was OK and being very open about how he felt.
Of course.
So obviously, yeah, like you said, you've kind of got permission to do
Exactly.
that. So it's one of those where we treat him like a guinea pig. So if he can talk about his mental health and we can discuss it on the podcast with me, with guests, then we're kind of saying, maybe you can too at home, whether that's with, a mate, a partner, whoever.
And I think as well, it's interesting having your stance on it, Izzy, because as you say, you're talking to your mates as such
Well, we
on the
didn't want it to-
podcast, and it's a different angle with you
Yeah.
there.
Exactly.
Izzy.
There was a danger it was going to become an echo chamber of middle-aged men moaning about the price of things and how young policemen are these days, which is great fun to moan about, by the way. But we needed another viewpoint, and that kind of came because you were working in production on it,
Yeah.
really. And then we thought, hang on, a lot of what you were coming up with in production would be relevant when we were recording the actual podcast.
And actually what was interesting is we thought, his opinion would be here, mine would be here, and that's kind of where the tension might be and we could sort of argue about it. But what's interesting is actually a lot of the time it's a lot closer, it's a lot similar, and actually I think generationally and, as a man and a woman, we agree on a lot more than we disagree with, which I think quite often things get pigeonholed, so men's mental health, women's mental health, older men, younger men, etc. When actually, I think we're trying to say we could all talk about it, because so much of mental health is universal, and actually, you might not have really close friends at the same age as you. You might have older friends, younger friends, or it just, single parents. If you've a mother and you have a son, you need him to be able to talk to you, and I think that's quite important.
And that's quite an important thing that I think is in it. And another reason for us doing this together is, it's great looking at a 54-year-old bloke's world, sometimes through the prism of a 23-year-old girl's eyes, but because we're father and daughter, there's no boundaries, we can talk about whatever. And I think what's critically important, you sort of alluded to it then, middle-aged men, I am one, we're only one demographic, one slice of society, one little group. We're a group that's not very good at talking and at dealing with emotions. But society as a whole needs middle-aged men to be healthy and well. Just as society needs menopausal women, young men, older people, every group needs to be in a good state. So it affects everyone.
Everybody. And it is the dynamic, though, because of the father-daughter thing. There's lots of funny elements where you say, well, you're actually annoying me today and things like that. And that comes through, which I do
I
like.
can't be the big TV presenter. I burst regularly.
But you found a newfound appreciation for your dad doing this.
Yeah.
Because really, say, away from the workspace.
I just saw a slight eye roll.
I saw it as well. I
Just
wasn't going to draw attention, but I did.
I did.
See it. What sort of a dad was he at home, away from work, away from podcasts and everything else?
Put me on the spot there. No, he's always been... I think it's interesting because obviously he was away quite a bit when I was younger. Obviously, you know, because we were talking about, obviously, because I've just started working in media. So it's one of those things where you have to take every opportunity you get because you just don't know when the last thing's going to be, you don't know when the next thing's going to be. So there was a lot of him taking those opportunities, which he had to do. And then when he was home, of course, he was brilliant. He was the fool, I'd say, is like me and my sister would just laugh at him.
Well, he
all
loves
the
a
time.
dad joke, doesn't he?
Exactly.
As
He
you've
is
said before,
king of the dad jokes. Yeah. But for me, it's really nice now because when me and my sister were younger, him working was just work. And because a lot of it was dangerous, my parents didn't talk about it. It was just, he's just going to work and that's all you need to know. Whereas now that I'm a little bit older, I get to discover what work actually was and is, and actually a newfound sort of awareness of it and appreciation of it wasn't just
you were just
messing
living
around.
in the moment. You were going, well, I've got to work, I've got to do things.
I mean,
So
you'll know people. I know people who are 20-year veterans of the business that are still, this could be my last job, I've got to take it, I've got to do it. And it is quite interesting that it's great for, in terms of us getting closer, it's lovely because you are now seeing the world that I've lived in for all of your life. And it's quite interesting with Iz because I've done this since she was born. It's all I've ever done. So you've grown up with TV cameras around you and microphones and all that. So there's no, ooh, I'm on telly about you're interested in the subject, in what we're doing.
And it's a job, it's work. That's what it is. That's why we do it. And
I mean, it's not to say it isn't fun.
oh, it's so much fun.
it's just a
better than
different
like a
type,
proper
isn't
job,
it?
but-
Well, I listened to the James May podcast with you guys, which was great, and you can tell that relationship's there, which is so lovely. And we had Matt Baker and Nicola on just a little while ago talking about farming life. How do you think Jeremy is as a farmer?
Yeah, well, look, you can't deny the authenticity of that show. The reason, you know, Top Gear worked with us and Grand Tour for so many years was because we love the subject. He is genuinely passionate about it.
Yeah.
I think it was a bit of a
Just
surprise.
not as good as he is at driving.
Rubbish at it. But it was
He's
a bit
got
of a
good people round him.
It was a bit of a surprise to the world when he announced he was doing it, but I know him well enough to know it is genuine. He
It's
loves it.
genuine, yeah,
He's
he
useless
means
at
it.
it. but loves it.
His heart's in the right place.
Yeah.
New episodes of Richard and Izzy's podcast, Who We Are Now, are out on Mondays and Fridays. Thank you so much. So good to see you.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me.